Says you're on there. Says you left the meeting now. Me, Tracy, Mike, and Barb. Scott. Bindle's on. We should be able to hear it here.
Hi, Vic. Can you hear me okay? This is Tracy.
I can hear you fine, Tracy.
Thanks, Barb. Not that I'm not participating in the meeting, but
I wonder if this is yours. A receipt. Did you used to get a receipt? I was going to have to pull out of there. I don't want to pull out. Huh?
How do you even organize that to go
How do we
somewhere
do
else?
that? I have to get out my personal stuff. Right there. And you can do it right out. Roll with me when I retire anyway. lasagna for lunch.
Oh, from where?
Trying to fix it.
Was it good?
It's good. It's real greasy.
Oh. I make really good lasagna with my Amish sauce.
Real generous with the cheese and stuff.
That's what makes it mozzarella.
And hamburgers. They don't drink the fat off it.
Yeah. Cousin doesn't want to charge me anything for his time. He just needs me to interrupt everything he's doing and he's at my house in 5 minutes. Just should be. That much late. He's not, that isn't what he does for a trade, but he's just.
What do you want?
It's been wrong to the ringer and no, yeah.
Still know how to use the.
Yes, no idea.
Like they got pretty. We'll quit talking. I thought it was on their memo.
All right, it looks like it is 1 o'clock, so I'm going to call this meeting of the Administrative Transition Committee to order. And it looks like we have Supervisor Turk and Glassbrenner and myself present, so we have a quorum. Proof of notification.
It was posted, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And can I ask that everyone please mute if you're not speaking? I see there's a couple that are not muted. All right, so agenda item number 4, the minutes from the December 4th, 2020 meeting. Has everyone had a chance to look at those? Are you talking, Ingrid? I can't hear you. Do you need to? Yeah, we still can't hear you. Do you need to call in so that you could use your phone for your audio if you need to? Clerk Vlasic, can you please mute your microphone?
Says it is muted.
Okay, no, it's not. I can hear you talking. There you go. You got it. Ingrid, can you? I can't hear you if you're talking.
Mm-mm.
Are you in? And you can't get audio?
Ben Southwick.
We're here, Ben. I can hear you.
Yeah, by telephone.
Melissa, can you hear
Oh.
me?
I can hear you now. Yay!
I don't know.
All right. All right. So have you had a chance to read the minutes from the December 4th meeting? If there are no changes, I would entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
I'll make a motion.
All right. I'll second. All those in favor signify by saying aye. If you want to just give a thumbs up, Ingrid, I think that that's acceptable. Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. I don't know if perhaps Barb, if you are on, can you assist Supervisor Glassbrenner in getting her audio to work? I think it's important that she be able to talk if she wants.
Yep. Supervisor Glassburner, can you just nod in the affirmative? Are you on your iPad?
No.
There you are.
Oh, you can hear me?
We can hear you now.
Okay. I apologize. I tested it multiple times and it said it was fine. So.
Okay. All right, we're good. All right, so let's get on to item number 5. Discussion and possible actions regarding the timeline and transition of functions from the county clerk's office to the county administrator's office. Administrator Langrick?
Okay, good afternoon, folks. Several documents here today. First item here is the agenda summary. In trying to put together a conversation, trying to cover all the many aspects and pieces that we've had in previous discussions, I've got a summary here and several documents that kind of supports both the agenda items for the transition of functions and also then the establishment of number of employees for the 2 offices. The recommended actions today, pending discussion, committee may take action to make recommendations to the finance and personnel for consideration and advancement to the county board. Multiple recommendations are presented in attachment C, which we'll address. As a background, in November 6th committee meeting, the Administrator Transition Committee took action to acknowledge the need for staff support for the administrator. In December 4th committee meeting, the Administrator Transition Committee discussed authorization of positions and amendments to position descriptions. Motion was made to recommend the county board to authorize 2 job positions for the county administrator, 1 job position for the county clerk. No vote was called on the motion and the motion died. The committee requested that a plan be developed including office space, location, and transition timeline. As such, attached documents are presented in efforts to inform the committee on the functions, offer options for transition, and recommendations for space. So I guess with that, let me transition to the 3 pieces that were put together. The first is a breakdown, kind of a summary of discussion that we had last meeting in regards to the position descriptions and with proposals or options, if you will, to move the different functions to the administrator office per position. Second document that we'll take a look at today is a very overgeneralized timeline of functions right now for finance, HR, insurance, and elections. Again, it is oversimplified, but it's kind of a way to try to gauge in an annual cycle of the different focuses of those functions. And then the third option is based on previous conversations and recommendations, would be a call for potentially for recommendations that this committee could offer to the finance and personnel in trying to match the vision that has been talked about by the committee, but without the actions that we've deferred until this meeting today. So backing up to the position description document, again, what we're looking at is on the left-hand column of this document is the accounts payable position. What we had talked about last meeting was the overwhelming majority of the functions were seen as staying with the clerk, with the exception of a few. So this document tries to break down the different functions, perhaps that would have to move over if the vision is to move these positions or the accounts payables types of functions over to the administrator position. And that kind of goes and breaks it down by the individual functions off of the position description and kind of say it's essentially kind of draws out if it's going to stay with the county clerk's office or be moved to the administrator's office. The same thing kind of then follows with the payroll and benefits specialist position. Again, a breakdown of the finance, which are kind of seen in green and the blue, and the HR functions, and the visualization of these functions were to move over to the administrator's office. And on this one, I think most all of them were, with the exception of the bottom two. And then the third position, the accounting supervisor deputy county clerk. And again, the potential for moving some of the functions, some of them kind of fall the in-betweens, as we had talked about with the context of the county clerk's office being seen as a repository versus handling day-to-day functions. So some of that kind of plays into Q on if they're transitioned, we still would have to make sure that we have communication conduits in place to ensure the county clerks can, the county clerk can perform statutory requirements on oversights and different reports and that function to fulfill those functions. And then it goes into our ordinance 2026, which were additional duties asked of the county clerk, stemming from administrative coordinator, previous ordinance that stayed with the county clerk. The two functions here of insurance and monitoring and implementing adopted budget. And then a breakdown again of the different state statute functions of the county clerk's office. So again, this was a way to try to capture the conversation from last month and identifying by position description which functions potentially would transition and which ones would stay in the county clerk's office, if you will. Timeline, again, these functions predominantly county clerk's office all now. If the proposed options of doing something in a very sooner kind of capacity of putting here at February 1st to have an idea of what is all going on February 1st for big picture type of items. January, February, we're executing W-2s, 1095s, 1099s for finance type of functions. HR is assisting with W-2s, 1095s, being that we don't have the position filled. Right now it's heavily HR and trying to figure out how to augment those types of functions to make sure that 1095s and W-2s are being put out. And then insurance renewals. We also have elections coming up of a primary. I'll just kind of let you put your eyes over the rest of the document rather than having to hear my nasally voice. For those of you that are online, for those of you that are just listening in, it's a document that's broken down into 6 periods, 2 months per period, and it just kind of outlays, again, the major functions of the county clerk's office as it relates to finance, HR, and insurance. And again, these are terrifically oversimplified. It does not capture but a fraction of what's actually going on top of the additional duties and the supporting duties to go with these, but tries to lay down the major functions on an annual calendar. The third document is a list of potential options, motions that the committee can make in recommendation to the finance and personnel. The heading on the top here says the following items are listed as recommendations to be considered in transitioning authorities and responsibilities. Possible action language would start with motion to make the following recommendations to the Finance and Personnel Committee for consideration and advancement to the county board for resolution with possible ordinance amendments. And it's broken down, the first top pieces here are kind of broken down into recommendations on functions. The second part is broken down into personnel. Then we have a small space here for office space consideration and transition. Then on the far right, past the recommendation, then kind of goes again to the sooner, later, end of cycle, which matches up with a timeline kind of thing of when do you want this to happen? On a February 1st time frame, on a July 5th time frame, on a January 1st. These are kind of put in with the mindset of seeing this as an immediate type of a wanted desire to
Did anyone else lose Clint's audio? Yeah. Are you talking? Because we can't hear you.
He was on his iPad, and when his phone rings, it
Oh,
probably interrupted it.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Now we can hear you. Thank you.
I'm sorry. It's that pesky compensation consultant, Mr. Patrick Glenn, I had reached out to. He was calling me back, so I do apologize. I will give Patrick a call back following this. Where did you lose me? Was anybody awake when I stopped talking? Hello?
We were all listening intently until your phone rang.
Okay. Which diagram was I on?
You had just mentioned office space and we're moving into the transition and saying whether we thought it was emergent or very urgent or not.
Okay. Okay, so yes, the third document, thank you. The third document is broken down into a section on potential recommendations regarding functions, personnel, office space, and then other transition items to try to help create continuity in a transition to help lay out some expectations, if you will. On the right-hand side, then again, we have a column then for, is this a sooner, a later, or an end of cycle type of a recommendation? And again, that matches up with the time cycle of, is this immediate, or it's something we're looking to try to put in place on February 1st? Is this later, of a July 5th, or is this end of cycle on January 1st? The functions then, as an example then, Richland County Administrator assumes authority and responsibility for HR functions effective, again, February 1st, or effective July 5th, or effective on January 1st, 2022, are kind of the examples of the recommendations that could come forward. The next recommendation then would address the financial functions with a sub-recommendation for the recruitment of an accounting supervisor, who's going to be responsible for that recruitment then based on the timeline and the when the transition is going to occur. Obviously, this is kind of seen as an immediate need to try to get the position filled to help augment all the efforts that are going into the financials, as well as end of year and closeout types of actions. Same thing then with our insurance program, and then that kind of also kind of goes in then to then for ordinance number 20-26, there would need to be language to repeal current assignment by ordinance to have these functions assigned to the county clerk presently. Moving down into the personnel section then, the first section here is kind of dedicated towards the accounts payable specialist, proposal then to have this position retitled to the deputy clerk position. Then the sub recommendations then of moving the functions of HR financial to the administrator's office, retitlement of the position and where the position would fit into a pay grade, and then other types of added budgetary expenses that may go along with movements. The next position then is the accounting supervisor. This would be, again, moving from the county's, or reducing in the county clerk's office and adding to the administrator's office. And then the next recommendation would have to do then with transitioning the position description duties over. And then again, affirming a pay grade assignment. The third one would be the payroll benefits specialist position. And it would be the same types of recommendations of recommending which duties then would come off of that existing position description to be placed then on the reassigned kind of clerk position, and affirming a pay grade. The fourth one here in pink is an add-on position. This isn't something that we've talked about in this committee, and is brought forward as an option for discussion today for the first time, would be the addition of an office clerical assistant position. The mindset of this position would be to fill in on the accounts payable specialist positions, which would be transposed out of that position, staying with the clerk and trying to find a place for them to land for accounts payables, receivables, and helping kind of with those functions. The fourth section here with office space would be A recommendation of the computer room, which is assigned to the clerk's office, be assigned as the administrator's office. The supplemental tasks that would be involved with that then would be recommendation to share the current county office's space to accommodate then for a clerk position, for an accounts payable specialist, for a benefit payroll specialist, and a clerical assistant. So I'm sorry, for a deputy clerk position, payroll benefit specialist, accounts payable specialist, and a clerical assistant. So it would be the mindset for least disruption would be kind of co-occupy that space with employees. And then the other part of the puzzle would be trying to figure out what to do with the AS400 computer that's currently in there. There certainly needs to be access to the system. Currently, it's a daily tape backup process to have access to staff. So we'd have to have a solution on where the AS400 system, that computer system, could go to still provide accessibility for data type backup and troubleshooting as needed. And then the fourth section here is a list of recommendations to try to help with expectations and managing what a transition would be like, and still trying to cover on the many functions that are going on. Recommendation that the county clerk continue with involvement of county financials, HR, insurances, and the role of teaching, coaching, advising the county administrator. Recommendation that the county administrator work with the county clerk on ensuring appropriate access remains in place for the clerk to gather necessary reports and information. Recommendation that the county administrator work with the county clerk to providing staff support for the elections and supporting efforts. Recommendation that the county administrator work with the county clerk in identifying budgetary impacts and bring forward amended office budgets reflecting changes in personnel and functions. So again, the three documents here that I'm looking forward to hearing your discussion on again today is kind of an iteration on what was talked about with the position descriptions from the last conversation. Again, looking at an oversimplified timeline of current functions of the clerk's office with financial, HR, insurance, and elections. And then again, a list of possible proposed recommendations then that potentially could be brought forward to finance and personnel for consideration then onto the county board in a package of transition, which would also then incorporate timelines and hopefully some types of continuities and expectations in place on space and
Circuit Court.
how to hand off. Madam
Circuit
Chair, that
Court.
is what I have.
Okay, thank you very much. I guess I think that what I'd like to do is start with the first document, the where he outlines the position descriptions and where the responsibilities lie. To me, that document it's very well laid out and makes it very clear where things, where the responsibilities are going, where they are and where they will be. And so I guess I would just like to know from Supervisors Glassbrenner and Turk, do you have any concerns or comments, or otherwise I would like to say that I think that this document, stands as presented as being accurately portraying what our vision is. Do you guys have thoughts on that?
I would agree, Madam Chair. This lays out all of the functions and the vision for where these functions will happen, given the new model of how we would be staffed. So yes, I would agree.
I also agree. With the clarification on the accounts payable specialist position, the parts that are in yellow, where it mentions ensuring clerk is informed, those are duties where the idea is they would be kind of back and forth, shared between administrator and clerk. Am I understanding that correctly? So there's some back and forth there.
Mr. Langred, did you want to take that, or should I address that?
Madam Chair, I was unable to kind of hear it was kind of a little bit blurred. Can I have you iterate the question?
Yeah, so I know it was hard to hear too, but my understanding was that she was looking at the areas highlighted in yellow where you're talking about ensuring the clerk is informed and has access to the records. I think her question was, how do you perceive that working? Is that right, Ingrid?
Yes, and I'm sorry about my audio. It's been an issue all day today. Hopefully you can hear me. Yes, that was my question. And I guess secondly, as an add-on, are those the 4 or 5 different areas there? Is that what you were saying would be covered by the clerical assistant position?
Yes, I think the question was Supervisor Glassbrenner. The positions here in yellow is what I would visualize being covered by potentially an additional clerical position. Yes, I would. The idea that that an existing payroll and benefits specialist and then an existing accountant supervisor position is going to also be able to take these onto their plate would be a stretch. There's certainly enough there to warrant having another type of a position to try to fill on it and to help with backup types of functions. So if the transition happened, it would be optimal to have another position. If it did not happen, it would have to be something that would have to be figured out and folded into those 2 existing positions as well as my position.
Thank you, Clint. I think the other part of my question was just that what Melissa said. Do you foresee that, or how do you foresee that looking? Would this assistance be kind of back, because it appears that those duties are somewhat shared, or that there's some communication that's going on there between county administrator and clerk?
I think I don't know if I quite heard it all clear, but again, it was, I guess I would say, I visualize right now what Amy's doing would still have to be replicated by another person. I don't think it would be, there's certainly not room on, from what I'm seeing, on a Tammy position or on what was a Derek position. So in order to try to fit all the pieces into a 3-person type of an office, something would have to be pushed out, and whether or not that gets pushed then into the administrator type of a plate is certainly an option. And perhaps these duties would perhaps still fall on a payroll and benefits position or on a accounting supervisor position, but then some of their tasks are going to have to be reappropriated to an administrator plate to make sure it fits. So if we added a clerical position, I would see that as covering down on these, as well as having more backup to the other 2 positions to help with such things as easy as paid time off, or in the event that we have, say, a COVID crisis going on or something of that nature, to be able to help in performing those functions, as well as the additional administrator types of functions that we're trying to do. I would also see the added position being able to help in the augmentation, or I'm sorry, to augment efforts when we hit elections, and to be able to have support for those elections coming from the 3 positions, with this one being a heavy lifter during those elections as well.
I think what she's also asking potentially is, do you see that position as being a liaison with the clerk's office? And that they would be, doing a lot of the communication with making sure that the clerk gets informed and has access to the records? Is that this position, or would that fall to you?
I would see us all in the same office. So however it's going to work out, I think the liaisoning still has to be directly between the administrator and the clerk on communicating daily on what types of tasks there might be needing help with. But as far as also helping with coordinating meetings and taking minutes and all those types of functions, there's certainly a need to help on those aspects as well.
Okay.
Did that answer your question, Supervisor?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Is it better sound?
It is better sound.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So I think I would like to move on from that document then to the next document, which is the timeline, the transition planning major function cycle documents. I guess I'd like to hear from the other supervisors, but my first reaction when looking at this is it doesn't really look like there's ever a good time. And I think what Clint said to me a few days ago was the least worst time is really what we're probably trying to aim for. So So yeah, I guess I would like to hear from Supervisors Glassbender and Turk on this document as well.
I think the assessment of trying to find the least worst time is entirely on target. This is going to be a lot of work and a lot of changes to manage no matter when it is done. Just off the top of my head, looking at trying to do that by February 1st of next year seems to be rushed, in my opinion. Either the July or end of cycle options would give more opportunity to hash things out and sort things out before flipping the switch, so to speak. Maybe there could even be a hybrid option where some things are transitioning on a July time frame and then the extra position is added at the beginning of the next cycle, something like that. Those are thoughts that I have after looking at this.
I think it's difficult to really understand what's going to be a realistic timeline when currently we still need the accounting supervisor. So I think that really throws a wrench into being able to smoothly plan a transition. So I don't know if that would be the first, I feel like that needs to be the first step of addressing, because until we have that, this is really difficult to transition.
I agree. I do think that that position needs to be filled as soon as possible. So the question becomes, who should fill that position and when? Right now, that position is clearly under the county clerk's office, and so it would, you know, if we wanted to do that immediately, which I agree we should, then it would need to be hired through the county clerk's office as we make this transition. I guess my only reaction with waiting on transitioning that position in particular is just, you know, then while we're training that person, we're going through this transition, which I don't know if that makes it difficult for a new person being in a position where they're, you know, where they're reporting to one person, but will shortly be reporting to a different person. So I do think that position needs to be filled as soon as possible, though. So I guess we should discuss how to best go about getting that position filled as quickly as possible without making it difficult for the new person coming in. Do you guys have thoughts on that?
Well, I'm wondering what position description we're going to be using to advertise or to attempt to fill that position, because this is all just so interconnected that it's difficult to pull it apart and decide what needs to happen first. I guess I think that we need the updated descriptions, but then that brings us back to, is this before or after transition?
Right. I would completely agree with that. I mean, I guess I'm right now at this point leaning towards maybe a hybrid like Supervisor Turk suggested, where we, you know, because this position is open, we need to get that position filled. It does make sense that we would want to hire with an accurate job description of what that position will be once it's transitioned. So I don't know, I'm sort of feeling like we should get that job description and that position opened with the accurate description as soon as possible. And therefore we would transition that one with a February 1st deadline. But I also think that, I don't know, I go back and forth. I mean, I agree with Supervisor Turk in that, you know, I don't want to rush it and make it, you know, make things more difficult. But I'm not sure that more time will actually help us work out some of this stuff, and that maybe we just need to move forward and work through it as we go. I don't know. I kind of go back and forth. Supervisor Turk, did you want to chime in on the finance function, the finance position description?
I think you could make an argument for that, transitioning in the short term before it's filled. But there are also ripples of other effects that would happen if you do that then have to be managed. I don't know that the net result is any easier or any harder.
So,
my feeling is that we should update the position description and at least complete that portion of the transition and hire for, and I don't know, but I would kind of agree with the assessment. I think that this could cause a lot of undue difficulties for the person trying to fill this position if it starts off one thing, becomes another, and there's a transition within a transition. It just seems to make it unnecessarily difficult.
So do we want to handle this by, do you want to make that a motion that we should transition the, what's the job title now? I'm missing. Is it accounting supervisor? Yeah, the accounting supervisor position immediately, and get that job description updated, and then those duties and the job description updated.
I think we'd have to keep the term immediately in context. It would have to go through personnel and then to the full board.
Right, which means February 1st. Yeah.
And which comes first, or are they both together? Do we update how does that work out in a motion? Do those both go together?
Yes, I think we would make a motion that we would transfer the accounting supervisor position to the county administrator's office as described in that first document that he has, where he has the duties outlined, and that so we would update the job description and transfer it all in one motion.
Okay. I mean, I think that sounds reasonable. I would make that motion.
I'm sorry. Well, we need another motion before we discuss.
Do I have a second to that? I will second it. You will second it? Okay.
Sure.
Okay, so motion by Glassbrenner, second by Supervisor Turk. Discussion, Mr. Langren?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, in kind of putting into context on how to march this forward, I would probably give the recommendation that the things that we're looking to recommend today, how we're going to build a package plan and steps, I think would be appropriate to say this is kind of, what we're looking at for a package, and then being able to then say back to the administrator, back to the county clerk on these bits and pieces. Can we, can we pick this piece apart and this piece apart and try to do it in this fashion, and be able to kind of run that through to make sure it's going to work with Victor, with staff, with those types of pieces. Because even like if we make motion to adjust the position description, and we make motion to reassign the account supervisor position to the administrator office, and that's all good and fine, but then we still have, have we taken action then to actually move the financial function, and then the financial function is kind of interconnected exactly, is interconnected right in with the payroll system and the accounts payables. So to kind of have, it's all kind of a sticky web. So, there would still be some talking points to affirm that that's going to meet the expectations and willingness to, for the clerk's office to still be able to operate and share the space, and to all these types of, it's all one big web. Did that come out clear, or did that come out as just a hurdle?
In addition, as I'm looking at this, if we do that motion and don't address anything else, without addressing or updating names or position descriptions on the others, that leaves the clerk's office without a so named deputy clerk.
Right. So, I don't think we're done making motions. I thought we would.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry if I.
That is a good point.
Sorry if I interjected in.
So, okay. So everything, we know that everything is intertwined. We've known that from the beginning. And so I guess, I don't know, I guess I'm at the place where I feel like we should just make the transition, and then I'm sure that there are going to be bumps in the road, but we will work through those as we go. I don't know if delaying it will help us figure out what those bumps are before they happen anyway. I don't know.
And Mr. Chair, this is Sean Murphy Lopez. Can I? And the process of changing job descriptions that we have at the county now.
Sure.
The county board amended the administrative manual in August to say that it used to be that all revisions to a job description must be approved by the department supervisory committee, the finance and personnel committee, and the county board. And in August, the county board changed that to strike all of those, the supervisory committee, the finance committee, and the county board to administrator. So we've given the administrator the authority to change job descriptions, working with department heads with their recommendations. So I just want to mention that, if you guys end up forwarding a recommendation to change the job description, the finance and personnel committee doesn't have the authority to do that. The administrator does. I guess the committee could say, oh, we direct the administrator to do this, but he already does have that authority to change job description, to approve revisions to job descriptions. Is the way it's worded in our administrative manual right now. So I just wanted to update everyone on that because it's easy to forget these things. I constantly have to go back and look to see what changes we made. And so I've got it pulled up on my other laptop here.
Thank you. I'd actually forgotten. We've had this discussion many times and I'd forgotten that the administrator does have the authority to change job descriptions. So, okay. So really, I think what we need to decide is we've had discussions and we haven't made the official motion yet, but we've had discussions that we want the finance and HR functions to be transitioned to the county administrator's office. And so I think what we need to decide right now is when should this happen? And I think given that the accounting supervisor position is open and very much needs to be filled, I think that is a driving force in when, because I agree, I think this should probably all happen as one thing because they are all intertwined. And so trying to transition one position without the other doesn't make a lot of sense. So given that, I am of the opinion right now that I feel we should move for a February 1st transition. Supervisor Glassbrenner and Turk, your thoughts?
What is the current status of that vacant position? Are there interviews being done? Are there?
This is Corporation Counsel Ben Southwick, Madam Chair, if I may. It's my understanding that the clerk attempted to fill that position, but apparently the woman who was offered the position apparently had some medical issues, and it appears from what I know that she has basically abandoned the job. So it's my understanding that the job is currently vacant. And I don't know if Mr. Vlasic has made further steps to fill it, but let me just add, as long as the position is in the clerk's office, then the clerk would have authority to determine who is hired for that position.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Mr. Southwick.
Question. Mr. Murphy-Lopez mentioned that this doesn't have to go to finance and personnel, but if we update position descriptions and forward them to county administrator, does it still wind up at county board or does it stop at county administrator's approval?
So we have to make the recommendation that two positions be, that the county clerk is allocated one position and the county administrator is allocated two positions. Those decisions have to go through finance and through the board. So the descriptions would then go along with that, but those can be written by Administrator Langrick. Does that make sense?
Thank you.
Supervisor Turk?
I guess Clerk Vlasic was on here. Is he able to tell us, is it currently just that position standing vacant at the moment with no recruitment taking place? My concern would be if there was active recruitment taking place, we wouldn't want to interrupt that.
Right. Clerk Vlasic, would you like to address that? Or perhaps Administrator Langrick, do you have information?
Madam Chair, conversation with Victor last week was the position was posted, as Attorney Ben Southwick had mentioned, that there was a candidate selected, offered the position. Day that they were supposed to come in, they had reasons of not being able to for medical. The medical reasons extended to the point where it was just a no contact. Clerk Vlasik's efforts to reach out to the person were not filled. Clerk Vlasik had concerns of trying to recruit now, feeling the position is kind of in a flux, and in trying to find a candidate pool based on not knowing where the position's going to be and the validity of the situation, that it's going to be challenging for him to recruit, as well as recruiting for a position that the merits or the recruiting for a position that might not be assigned to him also kind of led to the concern on going through the effort to recruit somebody that he may only be working for you for a shorted time and then passed off to somebody else. And I hope I said that correctly, Victor, if you're on there recapping from our conversation last week.
All right, thank you. All right, so committee members, what would we like to do here? So we do have a motion and a second on the floor. I think, do we need to do anything with that motion and a second, or does it just die, or do we want to redo that motion? I'm not sure what the proper procedure is.
It would need to be voted on unless it was withdrawn.
Okay.
I would like to withdraw that motion.
I'll withdraw my second as well.
Okay, thank you.
And then would the motion be appropriate at this point then to recommend the positions that the 2 going to the administrator's office, the 1 remaining in the clerk's office, and then along with that, the updating of the position descriptions?
And I think we just need a determination on the timeline.
Do we need to include the timeline within that motion?
Mm-hmm.
I think so. I think so.
So I guess we're looking at then the timeline date of the February 1st.
I mean, I think that position needs to be filled as soon as possible. And so for all the reasons that Mr. Langrick has laid out, and even what Victor's brought up as far as that it's not, recruiting for a position that's in transition. I just think it makes the most sense that we just do this for February 1st, and that way we can get it recruited as the actual position it will be, reporting to the person they will report to.
Okay. Well, then I would be willing to make that motion. Do I need to restate the motion?
Mr. Administrator Langford, did you get that?
I gathered that the motion is for a February 1st transition, and we were going to address then reducing the 2 positions, adding the 2 positions, and I got lost. Is the clerk was not, or the clerical assistant, that's not part of this? Did I get that correctly?
At this point, that is not part of the discussion. I think that's
okay.
Something we need to look into further with other options.
Then I have the motion then, Madam Chair.
All right. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right. Any further discussion?
So what Mr. Langrick just brought up as far as the clerical position, would that be a separate motion if we decide that that's something we want to pursue?
Yes.
I kind of cut out when you answered him there.
So yeah, that would be, I think at this point, we should leave that as a separate motion, because I think we need to research other departments, other staffing areas where we have staff, as to whether that's someone we want to transition from another department or how we want to handle that position.
Thank you.
All right. Any further discussion?
I would just say I'm not wildly enthusiastic about this, but it seems there is no good answer as far as picking an optimal time. So it seems that, yeah, let's rip the Band-Aid off and get this moving.
It's basically the least worst is kind of how I feel.
Yep.
Yeah. Which is not great, but it is, I mean, it's where we are. So I guess
Yep.
let's just, we can do this. We just have to, it's going to take a lot of work and a lot of moving pieces. So, all right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, we will be sending that motion or that onto, that recommendation onto Finance and Personnel and hopefully to the county board. So I want to touch on the space issue that he brought up. His idea. So one question I have is, Ms. Scott, are you on this call?
Yes, sorry.
Hi. So I am just wanting to get your initial thoughts on how much difficulty there would be in, sorry, my dog just ran in here. how much difficulty there would be in moving that AS or AC 400 or that computer out of that room.
Technically, it wouldn't be difficult at all. We can put it wherever, as long as it's on the network and on the same VLAN as the other ones. So we don't have a problem moving that at all.
Okay. All right. So I will just to give the other committee members my initial thoughts on this is at first that it's not the greatest solution that I guess I'm not familiar with how big that space is of where Administrator Langrick his office would be, but then I started thinking about, during this transition, being able to they're all going to be working together and working out how all these duties get transferred around. I think it would be good to have everyone working in a very similar space. So I've come to be more favorable of the idea of that. And that doesn't mean that, that the administrator and the staff would stay there in this space forever. There's the transitioning of the emergency management department out of the basement area. So there's potential that area could be made into office space at that point. So those were just my initial thoughts on that. Does anyone else have thoughts on the office space issue?
Madam Chair, I think the other advantage to the proposal is advantage of being able to efficiently serve the public. They're not trying to figure out, okay, is this still the office that I go to, or do I have to go across a hall or down a hall or something? Having those people still in close proximity also optimizes the opportunity for covering for folks who are busy, who are out, who are occupied doing something else. So I think it is in the best interests of not just our functioning, but serving the public to be able to keep them in close proximity.
I agree. Supervisor Glassbender, did you have any thoughts on the office space?
Not particularly. I think what Mr. Turk said is very wise. I guess just a logistics question you asked, Ms. Scott, if you can move that easily, but how large are we? I'm not familiar with this computer. Are we going to have a space to put this computer once it's moved?
Yeah, it's not much bigger than a normal tower. It's like the size of a server, so it's not a big, like mainframe that you might typically think of. It's just a large computer tower size.
Okay.
Great. So do we need a motion on his office space, or is that just something that Administrator Langrick, you will handle? Have we given you the authority to designate office space?
I don't think
Madam
so.
Chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
Not that I'm aware of. Again, I think it would be, if it's solidified by the county board, it takes the question out of it. The other part of the AS 400 problem is to, again, ensuring that we have access to it by staff. Right now, everything is tape backup. So that is going to be solving the backup problem will be part of what we'll have to troubleshoot as well.
Okay. All right. Well, I would make the motion that we accept your recommendation to have the county administrator move into the room that is currently occupied by the financial computer, and then share the middle area of the current county clerk's office be shared with your staff and his staff. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion?
Madam Chair, I hate to keep jumping in with information, but I just don't want it to become a problem later. So the current job description of the administrator under 7C, so the section's called property management. The way it reads right now is it says coordinates with the appropriate committee the preparation of architectural plans for county buildings and their construction, and allocate space to county departments and agencies. So maybe you guys still want to go forward with this. I just want everyone to know that there isn't a section on the job description that talks about allocation of space under the administrator.
What do you think the appropriate committee means?
I'm not sure. It's kind of mixed in with architectural plans too, but it's not very clear that the administrator would only allocate space when there's preparation of architectural plans. I'm sure it's something that probably needs a little more clarity. I don't think the property committee has ever been given the authority to do this. The finance committee wasn't. I've heard that no committee was ever given this authority in the past.
I imagine it would depend on where a project was taking place. If it were for the courthouse, then property committee. If it were health and human services, then their committee with their building, something like that is my assumption given the language, the way you read it.
So is there any reason not to send this motion forward? Just to make sure we've covered all the bases? I mean, can you hear me?
Yeah, I only just brought it up just so you guys know that there is some wording out there about allocation of space. And I haven't found any wording about allocation of space in the committee structure document or in the rules of the board, the administrative manual, the employee handbook. I've not seen it anywhere else. That's the only place I've seen that we've adopted any language around. I don't think it means you guys shouldn't do it. I just wanted to mention this is the way it's written right now. This is what we have on the books. So just a point of information for you guys.
Thank you, Supervisor Murphy-Lopez. That's very helpful. I'm glad you've been doing your homework here. So I guess just to make this a smooth transition, do we want to just pass this? I guess I don't see any reason not to pass this. It's not going to hurt to pass this.
Well, excuse me, Madam Chair, are you saying pass it to Finance and Personnel or forward this to Clint and then on to the county board? Because what I'm hearing Mr. Murphy-Lopez say is that there's no provision given for Finance and Personnel to actually approve.
Right, that's a very good point. I believe this one would go directly to the county board, it seems. Although it has to, well, it's coming from our committee, so it can go to the county board.
Yeah.
Madam Chair, it does appear to me, and all due respect to Supervisor Murphy-Lopez, it does appear to me that in the committee structure resolution that the Property Building and Grounds Committee has jurisdiction over all county office space, and with the exception and buildings and grounds, with the exception of Pine Valley Community Village.
You're looking at the committee structure document?
I am.
Okay. So we would send this on to property then, is what you're recommending?
It would be my recommendation in terms of matters relating to office space, as has been discussed. It's my opinion that that would be within the jurisdiction of the Property Building and Grounds Committee.
Okay.
Madam Chair, can you just ask, can we ask Mr. Southwick just to point to the specific letter so that I'm following clearly his interpretation?
Sure. Just one moment here. Yes, Supervisor Murphy-Lopez. I'm looking at paragraph C. Paragraph C under Property Building and Grounds, provide oversight and advice concerning the operation, maintenance, and janitor service of all county buildings. Paragraph E, recommend utilization and repair policies of all public lands, buildings, recreation sites, access sites, inclusive of all short-term buildings of the county with the exception of the Highway Department and land. Let's see here. That would be the, well, you got J, deal with all structural aspects of county security. Those two that I read appear to cover it. C and the other one that I read, and E. And Madam Chair, I might add, the rules of the board provide in the event of a disagreement over which committee has jurisdiction, the rules of the board provide that the county board chair makes that decision as to which is the appropriate committee.
Okay, well, I mean, I have no issue sending it on to property. They should be able to meet before that. They will meet before the next county board meeting. So this, as far as the timeline of making sure that we can get all these pieces put together, would still work. Okay, so I have a motion and a second on the table to accept the recommendation of the county administrator to move into that room that has the computer system in it, and that we would recommend this to the property committee. Is that acceptable to Supervisors Glassbrenner?
Yes.
All right. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, the motion carries. All right, so is there anything else, Administrator Langrick, is there anything else that we need to be discussing and recommending today? Oh, well, do we want to talk more about the third position in the administrator's office? I guess one of my thoughts, like I previously stated, was that, before we say we want to create, okay, let me back up. I don't disagree that there is definitely a need for the administrator to have an administrative assistant. I think that that's clear because the HR and finance positions were never intended to fill that role within the administrator's office. So I do think that that we need to discuss the needs of the county administrator. I guess one thing I would like to see from the county administrator, in addition to the duties that he's outlined, that are duties that are currently covered by the third position in the county clerk's office, the one that will now be the deputy clerk position. I think that there are other areas where the administrator definitely needs support. And so I guess I would like to see a complete list of duties that Administrator Langrick thinks the third position would need to be, would need to do, the tasks that they would need to do, so that we can begin to look in other areas of our county where we potentially may have staff members that could perform these duties. From the beginning, we knew we were going to be looking countywide, not just focusing on the county clerk's office, but that we wanted to try to create efficiencies and see if we can, if it's possible to find staff that we already have at the county before we would create a new position and hire a new person. I guess I would like to hear your thoughts, supervisors.
Recalling our previous discussions, we will be creating a new position and we would be ending another position, even if our intent is to move someone, because we're not transferring positions around, if I'm recalling our previous discussion correctly. But I think you are correct in identifying opportunities where, there are staff that could be, the allocation of staff positions could be reshuffled.
And I don't feel like we have, we haven't really talked much about this or had gotten much information on what this position entails. And so I think that my thought is I would like to instruct Administrator Langrick to get us the information of what that position would be, and that perhaps we can start looking at other positions in the county where they're performing similar duties and look at availability of staff across departments. Is that acceptable to Supervisors Turk and Glassbrenner?
Yes, considering today was the first we heard about the new position, I think getting more information for us as we consider it is entirely appropriate. Okay,
yes. I think that that would be great. All right, is there anything else? Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Supervisor Glassbrenner.
I think that, yes, we definitely need a full idea of what this position would entail. And I think that we do need to be looking countywide. It's just, we did go through an entire budget discussion with many of these departments, and it appeared to be difficult to identify anything then. So we may run into some difficulties with that now. So just keeping that in mind. Madam Chair, I can't hear you. I think you're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I think you're absolutely right. I mean, these conversations so far have been very difficult, and they're going to continue to be difficult. But I think that we, first and foremost, we need to make sure that the administrator can do his job, but we also need to make sure that we are being fiscally responsible. And so obviously, you know, I guess I can throw out some ideas that I've had. I mean, you know, in the Ag and Extension office, there's been a position the last 2 budget cycles, you know, that position has been up for being cut. Potentially, maybe that position could be shared with the administrator. And that would, you know, that would still give Ag and Extension a part-time position, but would also help the administrator. So, but we've also got HR and finance positions and administrative positions in many other departments. And, you know, the question remains, could there be efficiencies made, and where either a position is shared with the administrator or it's just transitioned over. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of discussions we need to have, and we need to have honest and open communication with our department heads about the potential of availability of some staff. So that's where I'm at right now. Administrator Langrick, did you have any comments?
I don't think so. We'll be marching forward this then to 2 motions to, I'm sorry, 1 motion to Finance and Personnel direct, 1 motion to Property Committee. We'll have to be turning a lot of wheels on how to try to get things in place to be lined up, and it will no doubt be a bumpy road going forward here, but we'll try to make sure we get these things handled out the best we can, the smoothest as we can.
Question for the.
Go ahead, Mr.
I was going to ask the chair and Administrator Langwick, do we think one of us should attend the property committee meeting when this is coming up? With finance, some of us are already on finance. That's not a problem. But with property committee, should we have a representative of the transition committee there, or would you feel comfortable handling it, Clint?
I don't know if I've brought in an item like this to property before. Hard for me to gauge on experience on where things would fall. I think certainly would be invited. The meetings, they have been conducting those in person. They have rescheduled their day now. They're on the first Thursday now at 3 o'clock. So it's kind of after the rules and resolutions then is property committee.
My question was just going to be, I don't know if this would be Ben Southwick or Supervisor Murphy Lopez, but I'm looking at this committee structure, and I'm trying to understand where we're getting the provision that they would make this decision. I'm not trying to be difficult. I just don't understand, and I don't want to take, I guess, extra steps if they're not the appropriate committee. So if you could reiterate where we're seeing this.
Madam Chair, may I respond to that?
Yes.
Yeah, Supervisor, I'm looking at paragraph C under property, building, and grounds of the committee structure resolution. Provide oversight and advice concerning the operation, maintenance, and janitor service of all county buildings. And then paragraph E, recommend utilization and repair policies of all public lands, buildings, recreation sites, access sites exclusive of all short-term buildings, public holdings of the county. Again, it's my opinion that this matter of the space falls within the jurisdiction of the Property, Building, and Grounds Committee. But I reiterate, that if there's a dispute about that, the rules of the board provide that the county board chair is to resolve the dispute.
I don't want to be argumentative or make a dispute. I just don't really see that that language is particularly more clear than the language that is in the current county administrator's job description.
Well, in all due respect, you're entitled to your opinion.
Madam Chair, if I could just pipe in, and I think in matters where the committee structure document is unclear, the resolutions committee has the ability to take up those items and consider any recommended changes. So if anything is unclear, that's the committee that has been assigned to deal with lack of clarity. And then regarding the administrator's job description, in the past, the Finance and Personnel Committee has made recommendations to the county board for how to change the administrator's job description. So that has been the historical way of handling any confusion there, because we have had confusion during this transition period. So just want to mention that. It's not entirely clear to me either, Supervisor Glassbrenner. But now I can see, hearing Mr. Southwick did again, utilization of buildings. It doesn't say utilization of rooms and allocation of space. You know, to me, that would be more clear. But I think there's ways that we can work that through the committee process to make it very clear who is responsible in the future, so that there isn't confusion. That'd be my response to your reaction.
Well, and I would add that it says utilization and repair policies. So I don't know if allocation of office space is exactly a policy or would fall under a utilization policy. So that is what makes it, to me, not a clear statement.
So I mean, I guess given that rules is meeting, you know, in the first part of January, so it would easily get to the county board. I mean, my main concern is making sure that we don't run into any snags where all of a sudden something can't be sent to the county board on January, whatever day it is, 18th or whatever. So my inclination would be that we ask rules to clarify those documents so that we don't have these kind of vague documents to try to make these determinations. But until then, for this particular case, I would ask that we just send it onto property and get it to the full county board.
Mm-hmm.
Is that acceptable, Supervisor Glassbrenner?
Yeah, and then did we answer Supervisor Turk's question about representation?
I think that Clint has indicated that he will for sure be there to present it, and that we are welcome to join if we would like.
It's going to be more than one of you. Please let me know so I can post the agenda appropriately.
Oh, right. If it's in person, I can tell you that I will not be attending.
Okay.
Is it in person with no WebEx option?
It has both.
It has both. So I could attend remotely, but I'm unless you think you need backup from this committee, I just can't foresee them raising any big red flags about this. So my inclination is to let you handle this unless you want our participation.
I'm okay at the moment. I will reach out if I feel that there's the reason to believe that it would be appropriate and wanted.
Okay.
What was the date again? January 3rd?
The first Thursday, he said.
It would be January 7th.
All right. Is there anything further on the transition of the positions that we need to take care of? Or I think we've covered our bases and we're sending what we need to finance and then to property. Is that correct, everyone? So then I'm going to move on to agenda item number 7, proposed future agenda items. I think I gave my thoughts that the proposed future agenda item would include that third position in the county administrator's office with a job description and or not necessarily a full job description, but at least a summary of duties that you think that that position would entail, and certainly any ideas of potential positions that are already available or already in the county. So anyone else, Supervisor Glassbrenner or Turk? Future agenda.
Could that include, especially as I'm kind of new to this, you mentioned there being other finance and HR positions in other departments. Is there some way to get document or to kind of a breakdown of what really falls into that?
I think we want to be cautious about not ranging too far from this purpose of this created transition committee. While those are long-term issues that really should be addressed, I don't know that that's necessarily what we were created for. Do you know what I mean? That's
right. And remember, we can't discuss future agenda items, so we need to be careful.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess I'm confused though as to how we're supposed to look countywide without some sort of picture of what that looks like.
Well, I think
that's what I'm asking on the agenda.
Right. Once that's on, once it's on the agenda, then we can discuss and gather information to present. So I guess Administrator Langrick, that is something that you maybe can start to think about as you're familiarizing yourself with all the departments and the different positions within each department. You could probably share that information with us at the next meeting.
Will do, Madam Chair.
All right. Any other proposed future agenda items? Then I would move to item number 8, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks.